Red alert. All hands stand to battle stations. Lay in and intercept course for the Romulan ship.
Shields up. Load all torpedo bays. Stand by phasers.
Warp factor 8. Engage.
Irving drives, hop step inside, closes out, misses. Rebound taken by Iguodala. Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. LeBron James with the Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving. Dribble steps back, puts up a three. Won't go. Rebound tip taken by Spates. Final seconds. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Oh my God. Oh my God, bro. G.I. Joe? G.I. Joe?
Oh no. Disaster. I got.
We all got duped. Agreed?
Yeah.
Cleveland! This is for you! You two people.
Say his name.
Do we have
he appears. I believe
anything
in Joe
going on
Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry.
We had this one on the bingo card, do we? Talk about end of the year out of nowhere. The hobby gods, the hobby content gods, have given us a bountiful harvest to close out 2025. What a magical time to be a content creator. It has never been this easy in my entire life. From the Dr. Beckett podcast to Snipe to PSA nonsense and drama to Nat Turner going full Thanos and completing the Infinity Gauntlet with the Beckett acquisition. We might have some guests pop in. We'll see. No idea how long this bad boy is going to go for, but we are off and running with the emergency live stream. Nat Turner always comes with the glad tidings. So, I mean, a lot we don't. I mean, I guess we kind of know what we know. They're running the party line of we're acquiring them, we're going to keep them. Everything's, hunky dory. Independent company this, independent company that. And I did confirm right before going live that they got all of Beckett. They did not get all of Collectivist or whatever the hell that company is called, but they did get all of Beckett. So they got Beckett, they got the auto authentication, they got the price guide, if anyone even cares about that. CBCS, which is an interesting angle to this, as PSA just got into the comic book business. And I guess if you want to read between the lines, and maybe this is just me reading in between the lines, all their communication around this has said that everything's going to stay the same with Beckett. But they did acquire CBCS as part of this as well. Would there be a chance that CBCS would go away and get fully wrapped into PSA's comic book grading? I mean, are they, William? The PR messages are very different from SGC to BGS. I mean, I don't know that I don't know that I 100% agree with that. Like, what are you seeing that's different between those two? I mean, I have the quotes from the original pulled up here. President Peter Steinberg to continue running SGC day to day as an independently operated authentication and grading business. I mean, that sounds pretty similar. How they're positioning this one. We recognize that every collector has their own preferred authentication and grading company. We look forward to providing expertise that will continue to enhance SGC's customer offering. CEO Nat Turner. Yeah, but Gio was wrong. There is no talk of sharing of resources in this initial press release. Zero chat about that. I mean, I have it. I can pull it up right now. I have it right here on the screen, ready to go. This might be hard to see. Here's the original press release from when this happened. This is from my video that I recorded on this back in February of 2024. Been almost 2 years. Was this the reason behind Beckett stopping group submissions? I don't think so. I don't believe so. Yeah, Peter, I can't find the, I might, let me see if I have it here. Yeah, here it is right here. Hold on. I have another. I was prepared. I actually, look at me, I actually did work ahead of time. Let me share a different screen here. Share screen. Me zoom you boys and girls in on this. So here it is. SGC will remain an independent grading brand, said SGC President Peter Steinberg, and no changes are complemented. Joining forces with Collector's team will allow SGC to double down on our strengths while greatly enhancing our capabilities to innovate and modernize our offerings moving forward. That sounds pretty similar to what came out today. I mean, just saying. That sounds pretty similar. That doesn't sound very different from the Beckett stuff that they used today. I mean, listen, we're going to know. We're going to know in a couple of months. Does anything actually change over at Beckett? Does anything change? Do we get a new submission form? Do we get a better pizza tracker? Those are two things right there that you would think would be pretty easy to fix. And do we see those changes? Because SGC, they promised changes and we all waited around for changes, but they never come. Set registry never came. New and improved tech never came. All we ever really heard about with the SGC acquisition was that they were sharing information back and forth, like around fakes and, just basically, security stuff like that, things that they would see while they were grading. But we never actually saw anything, anything significantly change on that. We never did. Give me 1 second. I just need to, if, is SGC gone then? I mean, SGC is not gone right now, but we have all seen what has happened with SGC over the last couple of years. I mean, we've seen how that played out. Sorry, I was sending the StreamYard link to somebody. I'm worried that PSA will change the grading scale. No more BGS 9.5. I doubt that. Because I honestly just don't see them doing much of anything. I mean, they just opened a office in Plano, Texas. PSA did. They just opened an office to grade tickets within the last few months. It's right, I believe, someone can quote me if I'm wrong, that lives around there. It's right down the street from where Beckett's offices are. So we know how this story ends, folks. They're going to have to really prove it to us. And when I say us, like, the hobby, Collectors Universe /Nat /PSA / whatever you want to call them, they're going to have to prove to us that this is different than the SGC acquisition. It's going to be a show not tell type situation with this one. I don't see any other way how they could do it, because I talked about it in the quick news hit video that I posted on this. Like, we watched this play out with the SGC acquisition. Like, we know what their playbook is for this now. So do they deviate from that? Then we might know that things are a little different. If all of a sudden, in 3 months, at the beginning of next year, they launch a new submission form online thingamajigger. They have a new pizza tracker thing in the background. Their customer service suddenly gets way better. If we see things like that happen, let's say in Q1 2026, then maybe we see something. Then we know that it's heading down a different path. If we don't see any of that stuff, then everyone's just going to assume it's SGC 2.0. I'm going to try to keep up with chat as best as I can, but I'll try not to be Dustin, but we'll see what happens. I don't know that this is maybe they're getting more nonsense with BGS because they are picking up the other stuff. So I'm sure it costs them way, way more money for this. Why wouldn't CGC/Blackstone buy Tag to absorb grading automation capabilities to scale? They could also help them. I don't think because you're implying that Blackstone wants to spend money on sports card grading. That's the first problem there. Does Blackstone want to spend money, or is Blackstone just happy cashing checks? And I think the answer to that is the latter, that they are very content with just cashing checks. CGC is probably extremely profitable, and CGC is now the clear number 2 in this. And quite frankly, I don't think the tag tech is near ready. Sorry, I'm trying to peruse chat and also ramble at the same time. I don't think the tag stuff is Paul, as someone that owns a Blackstone shareholder, no. I mean, they're going to say everything's unaffected right now. Oh, yeah, I played Ziggy in the semifinals in the Content Creator League. We are indeed live, Rip and List. Here's the other thing, too. Like, the other angle to all this is people saw how SGC played out. So the hobby is going to assume that this is going to go down the same path, and it kind of automatically undercuts Beckett's standing a little bit, I think. Like, I mean, if you were getting ready to ship off, and I know, unicorn, but somebody out there was getting ready to ship off a Beckett shipment, send in an order to them, and now all of a sudden they're probably side-eyeing that and go, maybe I don't want to send this in anymore, because they saw what is going on with SGC right now. The way the SGC thing has played out is not going to instill people with a lot of confidence to want to run out and submit cards to Beckett. Like, we saw this just happen with SGC over the last year and a half. Like, why are people going to be like, oh, this is the best thing ever, I can't wait to bundle up a bunch of cards and send them out to Beckett, when now all of a sudden there is this uncertainty here? Prices for SGC have not really gone down. Now what happens to BGS slabs? I think it depends. But SGC, I will say, and Pat, you can correct me if I'm wrong, SGC Modern has taken a hit, I think. I think SGC Modern has absolutely taken a hit. Vintage has not, I agree. Vintage has remained strong. And I think you could probably see a similar thing play out for Beckett, which, Modern 9.5s take a hit. And the 90s Jordan and Griffey stuff in Beckett slabs is not going to take a hit, in my opinion. I don't think, anyway. I don't think that stuff takes a hit. Because that's, 90s and early 2000s stuff is the SGC equivalent to Beckett, in my opinion. Yeah. And this is my take. They're going to have to, like I said earlier, Collectors Universe is going to have to prove to us that this is not the same with actions over words. Because their words are going to be, oh, this is fine. Nothing to see here. They're all their own little independent thing down there. They're a happy little grading company down in Texas. Everything is fine. Everything is awesome. But no one's going to buy that if nothing actually changes. This is very much going to be an action over words thing. I posted on X, what's the over under on Beckett becoming boutique? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Michael Stone says modern SGC has definitely taken a hit. Yeah, and that's the other thing. I missed the comment here. Oh, they're moving too damn fast. It will take some lag time to figure this out. It's you cannot look at the numbers for the next couple of months because they're already all jammed up. They won't combine pop reports into one. I'd be shocked if they did that. They don't want to taint the PSA brand with the Beckett brand. Beckett still does get quite a bit of higher end stuff. I think mostly because of the no upcharges. Hey, what's up, Orlando? Have we confirmed when the boutique concept came out with SGC? Was it the day of notice? It was months later. It was over a year later. I know because I posted the first video with the boutique comment. I know trust me, I know exactly when the boutique comment came out because I was the first interview out with the boutique comment in it. That interview posted 3 seconds after Peter announced his resignation. So I know exactly when the boutique comment came out. That boutique interview was recorded the night before that happened. You can go back and look at the timestamps. Go look at the timestamp of the SGC post for Peter doing his retiring speech to when my video posted. It was within 30 seconds of it. I was sitting there hitting refresh on the SGC's IG page, waiting to go live with my video. This helps with power packs. So that'll be another telling thing. Do Beckett slabs now come in the power packs? That would be a sign that things are shifting, that maybe they are going to keep Beckett around because they've had power packs for a year or 6 months, whatever it is. SGC slabs aren't allowed to be in power packs. It's PSA only slabs. If power packs becomes PSA and Beckett, that's a little sign. That's a little like, oh, okay. All right. You're letting that in. We see. Beckett does not have upcharges. Will you send them another one, Relic Rooms Collectibles? That's the key question. Will you send them another one? Beckett is boutique now for sure. So Orlando, I guess, an interesting angle here is, weren't they already boutique? Beckett already kind of was boutique. Most people that were submitting to them were chasing black labels for TCG and Tops Now. Oh, yeah, Michael Stone echoes my comments right there. There was another funny, and I wish I would have thought of this first. Do you trust Beckett enough to fix Beckett, or is PSA the better person to fix Beckett? Because Beckett, as a company, seemed like they had no interest in fixing themselves. So if PSA truly wants to fix them, or I should say Collectors Universe, but we all use PSA for shorthand. If Collectors Universe truly wants to fix them, is that better than Beckett trying to fix themselves? I don't know. I mean, Beckett has proven that they can't figure it out. Price premium over the other brands wouldn't make sense to kill off all the competition entirely, cannibalizing its premium status in the hobby. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see, Courtside Investor. Thanks for having me on the podcast, by the way. Someone in Dallas, Alan, where Beckett is, we have had local PSA direct rep accepting submissions for a year, hinting at this move. So, Grindstone 11, since your boots on the ground, how far away is the PSA office from the Beckett office? City Tasted Boutique. Shut up, Paul. They've tried and failed. The end is near, huh, Petty? The end is near. I attempted to get someone from PSA on tonight, but my guess is that they are going to be laying low between the holidays. So here's the problem with if PSA didn't have all the bullshit that they had last week, it would probably be a lot easier to try to get someone from PSA on. But I can't just have someone on from PSA. Like if I reached out to Nat or Ryan and said, hey, do you want to come on and talk about the Beckett acquisition? That's also going to have the boat anchor of we need to talk about all the other nonsense from last week. And that I'm guessing is problematic to them. If someone wants to pop on, feel free. Nat, if you're watching, we follow each other on Twitter. Feel free to slide into the DMs. I'll send you an invite. I did try to get someone and they politely said they were a little busy right now, which I don't blame them. What the hell is a power pack? It is a repack from GameStop. I was not being held hostage, Petty. Nice try. I was not being held hostage. I know everyone wants that narrative, but I was not being. I had a newspaper and everything. I was alive. We'll see what the whole collectible fun thing. I don't know how much I buy that. I don't think they keep Beckett around. The main thing that makes me think that is a lot of high-end stuff goes to Beckett and they don't do upcharges. Yeah. Like I said, it's going to be actions over words for them, in my opinion. It will be actions over words. They will argue because CGC and the smaller companies like Tag existing there are not a monopoly, but when you own 80% of the market, we know otherwise. I mean, CGC prior to this was their number 2 competitor, and that it definitely isn't changing. And CGC is not small. I mean, they get a decent amount in the grand scheme of things, especially on the TCG side of things. This is probably a win. Like if you want to talk about wins, Beckett has a really nice niche in TCG, specifically with Magic the Gathering and One Piece and Dragon Ball and like a couple of others. I'd have to rerun the data, or I'd have to have GemRate rerun the data. But Beckett definitely has a niche grading on some of the smaller TCGs, and they really dominate that section. It's a big part of their business because people want to chase black labels on that stuff. So we'll see. Beckett slabs are just as valuable as PSA. That argument is now settled. Remember how when people tried that when they acquired SGC and how that worked out? It did not go well. Did not go well. Just dropping links to some folks. If anyone is dying to come on and wants to chat, feel free to just shoot me a DM or let me know. I don't want to go full Professor Sports Cards and just post a random link. I don't know that I trust you to degenerates to behave. In addition to BGS and Power Packs, PSA offers for BGS slabs will be another sign. Yeah, for sure. For sure. They don't. So I don't know if they would upcharge for Beckett or not. We'll see if they change the pricing structure. It commented, one of the notes in one of the articles said that they would not be. But there is also they didn't make any changes with SGC's pricing. Can you review nines and the black labels for me? Oh, petty. Like 18 things going on at once right now. And I am chat. I'm so sorry, chat. I'm like Dustin right now. I am so far behind and comments are flying in. Now I know what Dustin feels like on every other Wednesday. Beckett was definitely boutique, but now it just doesn't have the trendy part of being boutique. Manu off the top rope. My fellow podcast co-host Manu, the 99 newsstand on IG. These companies are just printing money. BGS didn't care about fixing absolutely anything. They were content with whatever they could get, which is exactly what CGC is doing, in my opinion. What long-term get, but it seems to me like it would be cheaper to train and retain graders than buying Beckett and SGC to rate their graders. I think that this shows us just exactly how hard it is to get good graders. The fact that they're willing to buy out companies to get them. Most likely Stone. I was just being like semi-charitable that this, if you want to believe the face value on this one. Regulation for card grading in the current government is now allowing poison to be dumped in drinking water and on our food. I don't think we're going to see regulation come to card grading. I mean, Beckett is still a pretty big company in its own right, but they have been backsliding quite a bit. Hey, what's up, Gio? I sent you a DM, Gio. If you want to, I know you already did a live on this, but you're more than willing. You're more than you have an open invite if you want to come on and get belly rubs. Is it actually still safe to send anything to Beckett the grade now? I mean, they're still according to them, they still exist. Blackstone eventually going to own all of them. I don't know that Blackstone legitimately wants to own CGC. There's been, it was dark and you looked scared. It's always dark. I always have all the lights off. I am one with the darkness. I see a potential guest in the background, but it looks like that they can't figure out how technology works. So we'll give them a minute to get situated. Beckett does technically still have a publishing business. Whether they do anything with it or not is a whole different bag of cats. Yeah, I just don't know that Blackstone cares that much about grading. They care about green on a spreadsheet. I'll let you get situated back there. You just give me a thumbs up when you're good to go. Oh boy, that was the cheesiest thumbs up ever.
I had my camera off on purpose. I was trying to wash dishes. I don't want to interrupt.
Oh, look at you in your mansion. Is that what Arena Club money buys? Oh, they got him. Oh, you're back.
Mansion with bad Wi-Fi. I got to get downstairs.
Jeez Louise.
I got to get down near the router. No good.
Yeah. Gio has to go into the west wing of the house to get closer to his Wi-Fi signal.
That's correct. So I did hear, did you hear, it's the you probably already said this, the grading, the magazines, and the price guide are included.
Yeah, I tweeted that out already. I confirmed that with them. And
what
CBCS.
is Dragon Shield?
I don't think Dragon Shield was part of it, was it?
It's not. I just don't even know what it is.
It's a supply company.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
They're specifically geared towards TCG. They're actually probably a very profitable business. Dragon Shield is extremely popular in the TCG space. They're probably like, oh, well, bye, Gio. Dragon Shield dominates TCG. Gio comes in off the top rope and then disappears. I'm sure he'll be back. We'll see. Phone dying. Freaking Gio, man. This is what happens when you get real influencers on there. They got all this sponsorship money and they can't even get a good connection. Yeah, your Gio's technology is working about as good as Beckett's right now. I do reality TV for a living, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about what I do, but I'm doing a documentary on card grading now and how inconsistent I messed up. Oh my. Gio's house covers 2 zip codes. Yeah, he needs like 3 routers to cover the whole thing. So I guess, question for chat. What are you turning to? If you are, PSA is coming off a week of shenanigans and nonsense, to steal Gio's term. Where are you turning to? Are you just sending the CGC? Are you going, I don't even know what, basically it's just CGC. Or are we all turning to mags? Is this the new best grading company? Maybe I need to reach out to the penny sleever, see if I can work the sponsorship back in. Is this the third best grading company right now? HGA. Is this the HGA comeback? That's why Gio signed off. He had to go buy HGA to resurrect them. PSA only. Yeah, I'm been pivoting the CGC for the past couple of months, and we'll send more there. For PC stuff, listen, I love CGC. CGC is great for PC stuff, but if you're grading to sell, I don't know. Michael Stone, where'd he go? Right. Ooh, comments all over the place. Right here, he uses CGC quite a bit, or at least did. You could speak to buying and selling CGC at shows and stuff and how that goes for you. A lot of CGC stuff in the chat. A lot of CGC stuff. There is that new where'd it go? I lost the comment. I was going to say there is that new it's called the Authority, I believe. I actually do have contact information with them. I could potentially reach out and have a little chat with them, but we'll see what they bring. I know that their label is ugly. That label is real ugly. Is this the Tagbot revolution? Is it time? Told you months ago CGC is gaining steam. Yeah, we'll see. I'll believe it when I see a CGC 10 sell for the same price as a PSA 10. The problem is that CGC can't handle the volume. And also, let's play fair here. PSA had all their drama last week, but CGC is not drama free. They have that pretty big Pokemon scandal still hanging over their head. They have had some pretty big stuff on the comic book side. There is not an olive in my Mountain Dew. I don't know where you. Maybe it's just the glare off the glass. I'm almost on empty. That's a problem. I don't grade anymore very often, but I'm still using PSA. Yeah, I don't think that's changing for anybody. Yeah, I don't know. The Authority part of UD, or they only do UD. I don't know. I don't know a lot of details on the Authority. I've glanced at them quickly, but I have not dug into what they're all about. Yeah, here you go. This is direct from a sports card dealer that sets up at shows, that actively sells CGC cards. I love CGC. They do sell, but a CGC 10 goes for 60 to 70% of a PSA 10. So if you're willing to do that, have at it. Oh man, Peter would be a dream interview. Peter, if you're watching, whenever your NDA is up, shoot me an email, buddy. I would love to have you back on the channel to talk about all this nonsense. I would agree with this. I don't think I have ever gotten an inaccurate grade back from CGC. I'll give you a perfect example. I got it sitting right here. I bought this from Rudy's grading company, whatever the hell it's called. Alpha, I don't remember what it's called. PCGS or whatever it's called. It was in a PCGS 9 or whatever the hell the name of the grading company is. I cracked it because I thought it looked really clean, and I sent it to PSA, and it came back 7. And I did not agree with that 7 grade at all. I submitted it to crossover at the National, and it came back a 9, which is what I thought that the card was. Plus, I'll be honest, Beta Magic the Gathering just looks better in this holder anyways because of the label. I thought PSA did me dirty on that, and I crossed it over, and it came back the grade that I thought that it was going to. No, Arena Club grading is not going to catch on. Get that nonsense out of here. The only reason Arena Club grades is so they can fill out their repack. Beckett and Tag for TCG cards. No grading for sports cards for the foreseeable future. It's better to sell raw than grading nowadays. I mean, you're not wrong. There is definitely a case to just sell this stuff raw because the turnaround times make it really, really tricky. Peter's not lost. He's just enjoying himself on a beach somewhere. And I don't think if Peter comes back, I don't think he comes back to grading, in my opinion. Maybe he does. I don't know. Prices on CGC 10s are gaining. I would love to see the data on that. Is it FCG's time to shine? And no, this is either going to be PSA and their Infinity Gauntlet, maybe Tag, but doubtful. The only reason I say that is because they have at least some foothold. And then it's CGC's ball game right now for second place. It is CGC's ball game. They control their own destiny, if you will. But if they get here's what's most likely going to happen. CGC is going to get a bunch of orders. Their turnaround times are going to get real bad, and everyone's going to get all pissed off. It's going to take a long time to get cards back. They're not going to be as liquid, and they're going to sell for less, and everyone's going to cry. And in the meantime, PSA is going to continue to expand and get faster and clear their little mini backlog. And then what happens? Because nobody has the scale that PSA does. It's insane how quickly and how fast they scaled up. Like insane. It is wild. As of right now, everything is just staying the same over there. I do agree. I don't like the way vintage cards look in CGC holders. Yes, agreed. Agreed, Kraken. 100% agree. Until customers come to my table and even look at anything other than PSA, the hobby is stuck. Yeah. I think so. I think that's the general. Does anyone... So another question for chat is, once again, I am 1000% pulling a Dustin here, and I'm a mile behind. Does anyone actually firmly believe that Beckett is not going to go down the path of SGC? We'll just take a quick. I guess I could like be a content creator and throw a poll up here or something. Start a poll. Does BGS become SGC 2.0? Yes, no. Start poll. There we go. There should be a little poll up that you all can vote on. YouTube is telling me it's a good time to insert an ad right now. That's a very good question. Why would they? That depends, Michael. If they need to get cards in the door, they'll lower prices. It just depends on how busy they are. They have lever. I mean, all the grading companies have proved it. If they really want to manipulate the submission numbers, all they got to do is tweak prices. If PSA ever gets to the point where they are running a thinner backlog, they'll just run a special and everyone will go flying back to them. I mean, it is crazy. I was looking at my PSA orders from a year ago, just a year ago. And I was getting bulk orders back in like 5 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks. I was getting bulk orders back from PSA. It's like specials. Like there was an MLB special I submitted to, and it came back in like 5 weeks at like whatever the price was per card, cheap. So if they ever get back to that point, it even furthers their dominance because they can always cut prices. Like we know that they were extremely profitable at those numbers. Yeah. And once again, I have to imagine a lot of this is about adding more capacity. I would be shocked. I would be shocked if we don't see a PSA card grading office down the street or attached to the Beckett office at some point in the next year or two. I would be shocked if that doesn't happen. They already have the ticket grading business there. I don't know how big of a operation that is, but I would be stunned if there is not a ticket or a card grading aspect to that at some point in time as well. I think CGC bulk, and someone could correct me in chat if you've sent something recently. I think it's a little over a month. They've actually gotten turnaround times down a little bit. I would actually put my money on Fanatics more than PSA, to be quite honest. That's an interesting topic. But there's no doubt about it. There are the two most powerful people in the hobby are Ruben and Turner. It's not even close. I did that video not too terribly long ago, but it is not even close. I do not currently have a hobby supply partner, so if someone wants me to, someone has a nice mag that they want as the third best grading company out there. There are definitely not more Beckett slabs in the wild than PSA slabs. I don't know if that's the comparison you're trying to make. I am not a huge fan of the Beckett slab. I think it's too large. I hate the way that the label pops loose sometimes. I have a love-hate relationship with the inner sleeve. I like the fact that it's there, that it protects the card, but I hate how scuffed up they get and make the card look like ass more times than not. Oh, I'm sorry, Kendall. We don't have time for that right now. I actually didn't mind it. I thought it was a fun little twist. Honestly, feel like less people would be mad if all Beckett employees were converted to PSA than if they did that with SGC. I don't know. That's an interesting talking point. 14 bulk submission FedEx on 11/4, graded and return home on 11/7. What to which company, Fence Guy? To CGC? You got a bulk order back in 14 days? 13 days? Math is hard. That's nothing. The deal ran out and they didn't want to keep going. So simple as that. No harm, no foul. That's the way these things go. Purchase your competitors, steal their graders and facilities, wind down operations, end game. A little Thanos snap style. So what you're saying, Boom, is Neo's like a Comic-Con player. I am indeed married. With JSA was 11 days? Wow. I didn't realize they were that fast. Not a fan that it takes away from it. Yeah, I have, like I said, I like the idea that the inner sleeve is there because it helps protect the card. It helps stop it from bouncing around. but I've seen so many. There's been so many cards that I've looked at to potentially buy that are Beckett, and I can't tell if it is all messed up because of the inner sleeve or if it's a legit surface issue on the card. Sometimes it's hard to tell. Sometimes you can tell. Someone online said CGC is raising prices. They're in a meeting right now. CGC is in an executive meeting right now in the C-suite trying to figure out how much more they can raise prices now. Collecting shows have the luxury of choosing multiple products from multiple manufacturers like it was in the 80s and 90s until now. That's, you know, we don't live in the past anymore. That's the way businesses run these days. It's all about vertical integrations and controlling everything. And technically you have a choice. You could use CGC or you could put it in a mag. You don't, no one forces you to grade. Yeah, CGC memberships, if you're going to send a decent amount, are pretty good. Crossover special. I wonder why, and like I said, I don't wonder, I know why. Blackstone didn't want to spend the money, but a CGC, I still think the biggest screw up was CGC not buying SGC. That one made so much sense on so many levels. I hope the market starts to raise others outside the machine that is collectors universe. Kind of reminds me, they could do whatever they want now. The question is going to be is, and you know, I've talked this to death. There is no one in position to raise up. CGC needs to show me that they actually want to spend the money to compete with PSA. And I don't know that they want to do that. I don't know that they want to do that. They have yet to show me that they want to do that. They could. They could. The PSA magazine has pretty good branding on it. It is actually pretty popular. 80% on the poll, by the way. We'll end that one. That Beckett is SGC 2.0. PSA needs a Canadian office. They already have a Canadian office. They just opened one. Yeah, they did raise prices. That's the joke, is that they would raise them again. Maybe they were about to, and maybe this was them, you know, jumping in front of that, just like they did. There was rumors when they bought SGC that part of that acquisition was to play keep away from Fanatics. I don't know how true that was, but that's been speculation that that part of the SGC acquisition was to play keep away. Was this the same thing? Maybe. I mean, I think Ruben said publicly that they don't want to get in the grading business. And I think that alone should kind of tell you, like, let's take Fanatics' comments on grading at face value, that they don't want to get into grading. If they don't want to deal with it, with all the power and sway that they have, like if Ruben is like, nah, bro, I'm not messing with PSA, like it's just not worth the fight. What makes you think that someone random is going to be like, all right, let's go get him, if Fanatics doesn't want to do it, whether that be through acquisition or just starting one on their own? That should pretty much tell you all you need to know. Will GameStop begin taking submissions for SGC and Beckett now? 100% not SGC. I doubt they take Beckett. I mean, that would be another sign. Considering Beckett just shut off all group submitters, I don't think that they're now suddenly going to take GameStop. Nothing happened. That died a slow death is what happened. What's your perfect grading company? PSA with less conflicts of interest and better consistency on their grading. I wonder if CGC knew the PSA acquisition in advance. This also means CGC was in talks to acquire. That we'll never know. That we'll never know. Yeah, and the response was to raise prices. I don't see them investing the money to suddenly expand to multiple, they're in some other countries, but they're not going to be able to compete with PSA out of one office in Florida. It's just not possible. I don't think Beckett wants to offer Beckett grading to anyone else. It's definitely not going to happen for SGC. 100%. It's not going to happen for SGC. I would be almost willing to bet my life that it's not not going to happen for SGC. I'm in the Akron Canton area. We don't know what the sale price was. I've heard the 50 million number thrown around with SGC. I don't know how accurate that is. I don't know that SGC actually was upgrading their tech, though. I don't think anything SGC did made PSA nervous. It absolutely would, and nobody would care. No one cares about, I mean, people whine on the internet about conflicts of interest, but everyone still uses all the companies that they're mad about for conflicts of interest. Collectors to buy fanatics. Yeah, their answers to specials is raise prices. Department of Justice doesn't care about card grading. I mean, maybe. I don't know if I see that happening. That's like the one that's still out there, but I don't know that would matter. I still don't. Even if CGC became part of Fanatics, like once again, conflicts of interest. People freak out about, and justifiably so, about conflicts of interest with PSA, and now you want Fanatics, a card manufacturer, to get into grading to compete against PSA. Like, logic that one through for me, will ya? People are mad at PSA and collectors for conflicts of interest. Once again, justifiably so. And their answer to that is Fanatics teaming up with CGC. So it's not a conflict of interest for the people that make the card to also grade the card. I don't know that I'm buying that one, folks. Is the takeover now complete? Boy, is it damn close. I don't know what else would possibly need to happen. Please explain out loud why a PSA slab is worth more than an SGC or Beckett, because people are willing to pay it. The same reason, I mean, I'll explain it to you. I'll give you the simplest example in the world. The same reason why a Lexus sells for more than a Toyota. They're both made on the same goddamn line. Same reason why an Acura sells for way more than a Honda. Or Nikes outsell a pair of Skechers. Yeah, well, Bushleaguers gets it. To me, the one that always made sense was SGC and CGC merging together, but that's obviously not going to happen now. I mean, that ended 2 years ago, basically. I mean, SGC gave the blueprint on how to compete with them. It was fast turnaround times, cheap prices, and fast turnaround times, and it's hard to replicate that. AI grading is not ready. I get everyone wants the AI overlords to come to grading. I don't think AI grading is actually ready, especially for catching fakes. I think that's the whole reason why Tag doesn't do it for older stuff, because they don't trust it well enough to catch fakes. That's purely hypothetical on my part, but why else would you not do it? I mean, CGC is already a clear number 2. They're already the clear number 2. They were clear number 2 yesterday before this news came out. They were the clear number 2, at least overall. Most of that's TCG, but yeah, my little Marvel card collector heart is still not happy about the blue label. Once again, I don't understand this rush of everyone crying about conflicts of interests, but they want the manufacturer to buy a grading company. It's hilarious the way people argue some of this stuff. Not saying that that's your argument, but just in general, that's the narrative that's forming. That's the unknown question, really. We'll find out. The gem rate numbers will tell all. We produce the card, we package the card, we grade the card, gem, we sell the cards, we repack the cards, rinse and repeat over and over and over again. I have no idea what's going on with Dustin tonight. I haven't talked to him. He's in a PSA messaging meeting with Nat right now. Is a PSA 9 better than a Beckett 9.5? Some people already were thinking that way anyway, so I don't know that that's that big of a stretch. They don't grade anything pre-89. I think 89 is the cutoff. So no, they actually do not do older stuff. Don't get me started, Stone. The beginning and the end, no. I don't. I think once again, we are we overrate how big of a bubble the slice of social media is, like YouTube, IG, Facebook, whatever you want to call it. I would honestly bet most people probably either won't really know that this happened. Maybe this one they'll know, but most people probably won't care, to be quite honest with you. I get it in the YouTube space, in the IG space, in the Twitterverse. This is the biggest thing in the world for us degens that choose to live in these little corners of the hobby. But most people walking around the national even probably aren't going to care about this. Just like they're probably not going to care about all the PSA drama from last week. It kind of is what it is. Like, most people aren't even really going to know that this stuff is going on. Just check the distance between the PSA Plano location and the Beckett plant. 12 miles. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you, Sammy. I knew that they were close. Yes, the vault is in Delaware for tax reasons. 100%. Yeah, the PSA vault's in Delaware. Yeah, people don't want accurate grading. They want 10s. That thing has been around for a really, really long time. What if this was all petty revenge for when CBCS sued PSA for stealing their head comic grader? Yeah, that's actually interesting. I'll have to ask Lesko what happens with that, because that is a weird angle on this that I did not think about. I'll have to shoot him a message and ask. That's an interesting thought experiment. Not that that's why they did it, but like, what happens to that case now? Was there defensive shill bidding involved with the purchase of Beckett? Everything, yes, everything is in debt, including flipping Steve. Yeah, I've seen a lot of them. I enjoy watching them, to be quite honest. What's the reason for the purchase? Why now? I mean, Beckett has been, there's been a long theory that since the collectivist thing happened, when they kind of shifted the company over to collectivists a while back, I don't remember exactly when that was now. I am blanking on it. That the whole purpose of that was to make them easier to sell. So I think that this was Beckett selling was always the end game. It was just a matter of finding the right buyer. And maybe just maybe they wanted to get it on this tax year or something. Who knows? Also, I mean, let's be honest, PSA is backlogged to high hell. They need graders. They need another office probably. And they have proven with SGC that this is the easiest and quickest way to do it. Yeah, and I don't know that there's anyone in the space willing to go to that war. I mean, Peter no longer works there. He's basically got paid to go away. I mean, they don't need Peter. I mean, Peter's great, but I mean, it's clear that he's not part of their plans. Let's pull up this super chat real quick. Do you think PSA may open a submission center in Dallas Fort Worth, maybe at the Beckett's office? Will you be at the Dallas Card Show next year? Yes, no. Well, I shouldn't say no. Most likely no on the Dallas Card Show. Do you think PSA 1000% there you were getting a submission center in Dallas Fort Worth? I shouldn't say 1000%, 99.9%. You are going to be getting a submission center in the Dallas area. And I would not be surprised if it was at the Beckett office. They already have a ticket grading office down the street, so that's not that big of a stretch. I would love to come to a Dallas Card Show. I started planning my travel for next year. My wife and I were booking hotels and stuff for next year, and boy, oh boy, did that calendar fill up fast. I already have Heroes Con in June. I ended up booking a hotel for Fanatics Fest in mid-July. I have the National at the end of July, New York Comic Con in October. Crazy times. And that's just those 4. But I would like to get to a Dallas show. It's just tricky. I actually think maybe this is a hot take. I think PSA is cheaper to grade in a year than it is today. Yeah, I thought it was around a year ago too. I feel like you're right. I mean, obviously, I would have a video on the channel somewhere to back that up, but I think the owner's already in jail, actually. Yeah, everything funnels to California and then filters out from there. So you think they spent $100 million to smokescreen the nonsense from last week? That's a hell of a take. Start a grading. That's the real business right now. Start a grading company and sell it to PSA. eBay is big enough. eBay's already in bed with PSA. Why is eBay going to go at Collector's Universe? They're already BFF. Well, you got your Beckett comeback. It's with Nat Turner sitting behind the desk. I don't really have a big problem with the PSA slab. It's whatever. I mean, I don't think anyone loves any slab, but it's fine. Can we get Beckett workers to speed up the PSA process? I mean, that's probably what's going to happen. Will PSA accept SGC and BGS submissions for Vault at shows and plays? They already did. You could Vault CGC, SGC, and Beckett. You've been able to do that for like a year. So we kind of have one card company and one grading company now. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. It is Nat and Ruben's world, and we are all just living in it. This will take a new company who refuses to sell to PSA takeover, provide fast, reliable human. I don't see it. I don't see someone coming in and cracking it. It's so hard. Have you ever put a bounty on a card? No. GameStop is headquartered in Dallas, Fort Worth. Oh, I didn't realize that. Ever held or seen an 89? No. No. No, I didn't know that, and no. To answer that question, David, so thank you for the super chat. It's all about TCG volume until that slows down. Turnaround times and prices will be up. Yeah. Once TCG slows down or until they catch up. Yes. But the second that they do, they'll just offer a sports special and then it'll be all about sports. I don't really buy the whole we need to buy a grading company to get more graders. You'd be surprised. It's not just about the graders. You get like the whole support system for a brand new office. I can tell you right now, a large reason why SGC was bought was to buy a grading team. And I would not be surprised if this was the same exact thing. They're not telling me that, but yeah, I mean, I literally just bought a CGC slab yesterday from the PSA vault on eBay and just transferred it to me. So we should be having a guest here shortly. PSA's new pricing model will be based on monopoly, not necessarily the highest prices driving demand based on its company profitability. They need to get, so you have to feed the beast. So if submissions die down, they have to feed the machine. And cards feed the machine. So if submissions ever slow, they are, or they will, in my opinion, lower prices to feed that beast. They have a lot of grading. They have a lot of machines they got to keep running. Where are you going to put them? We don't know how many graders PSA has. Yep, bingo. Buying talent is faster. Give me a thumbs up, special guest, if you are good to go. All right, we are here to commiserate on why our Cleveland Cavaliers suck. Welcome, Gemrate, to the stream. What's up, buddy? You're muted right now. Quality work. Big intro like that. We're going to talk about Evan Mobley. We're switching all topics to Evan Mobley being out for 4 weeks as Gemrate figures out why nobody can hear him. This is professional operation out of Gemrate. Oh, and then he just, what is up tonight? Gio comes on for 30 seconds and bails. Gemrate hops on for 30 seconds and disappears. Is it me? Is it me? The Pokemon market in general has slowed a little bit. I did manage to I recorded the video, ate dinner, and then went live. Luckily, the wife is traveling for work, so. All right, let's try this again. Speak, sir.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Oh, you got me. You got me.
I had a great line, too. I was saying, we all know why the Cavs are struggling. They got rid of Okoro, the glue guy.
No, Ty Jerome.
No, Okoro, but we're good here.
We have Jalen. We have Jalen Tyson. What you always thought Okoro would and should be.
Cavs are on the struggle bus, that's for sure.
Is that Nat Turner coming to arrest you for talking about grading? I heard the sirens in the background.
Now we know why he's selling that big Kobe Jordan card in Heritage Auctions.
Right? Was that an exquisite?
Yeah, that was the 03 exquisite. It's still up. I think it ends this weekend.
Is that card worth more than Beckett?
No comment. No comment.
Is that PSA graded or is that Beckett graded?
That's PSA graded. Pretty sure it's a PSA 6.
I wasn't sure. Yeah. So that buys like what, 50% of Beckett?
Come on.
Nat just reaches into his Zion case and pulls out a couple cards and was like, I'll trade these for Beckett.
There's probably a deal to be had. I did not catch the first hour, so sorry if I miss any or repeat anything you already talked about.
No, you're fine, because you might have a different perspective than me. So I guess we'll just open, like, what's your take on this? I'll give I've been talking for an hour straight there's currently, I think we peaked at like 500 to almost 600 people in here. So.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised. I guess I'm so in the weeds with this stuff. Let's put it this way. Behind the scenes, I get people reaching out to me for market research data. And, there's been stuff kicking around the last 6 months just because the hobby's doing really well. And there's people, looking at all sorts of different businesses. And, people were definitely kicking the tires and grading the past few months. But, I never really know what their agenda is and I don't ask. But anyway, that said, I'm surprised. Same way I was surprised when the SGC thing happened. I thought it was much more likely Beckett would have been acquired 2 years ago when SGC got, grabbed by collectors. And so I think it's there's a lot of potential motivations. I think now that we've seen the SGC playbook, people are pretty scared that that's the route this is going to go immediately, which, there was a much more debate back then because SGC was sort of thriving where Beckett's kind of been, floundering a bit. So yeah, I think it's I think there's a lot more to the Beckett story though. I mean, that's one of the reasons I do things like the iconic tracker, which I only send out via email. Because I think we talked to Denny at the beginning of the year in January. And I'm a little bit of like by no means a Beckett truther, but I just believe like the brand stands for a lot. And I think it stands for more than what the SGC brand stood for when it was acquired. And so I think there's legs to this. I don't think they would I could be wrong, completely wrong. But Beckett's a much smaller grading team from what I understand. They are a 10 to 15 person grading team. SGC, I think, was meaningfully larger. So the graders are not necessarily like the be all end all here. And I think you tweeted out how it's not just the grading, obviously, that's being acquired here. And so there's a lot of moving parts too. I think, there could be, I was trying to, before this, I jumped on, I think there could be an angle to, for example, the eBay stuff that PSA has been doing in collectors. Like, for example, if you're eBay, you're finding a lot of success with putting the PSA data attached to all the listings. This is another way to do it for the 13 million Beckett slabs that are out there as well, if you wanted to, through that partnership, which eBay likes. It gives, a little bit more leverage to PSA in this, or collectors in this instance. But yeah, I mean, it's a different scenario from a brand standpoint. I think there's more reason to keep it around than sort of immediately move it down this boutique path. But I don't know. I have no inside knowledge as to why, the timing of this. If there was, I think the SGC thing too, we saw as a little bit more of like a defensive measure. There was a lot more talk of Fanatics kicking the tires on grading companies at that stage. I haven't really heard anything on that, and I think Fanatics has its hands tied right now with the licenses actually being live and delays, and live itself and Fanatics Fest and all these things. So I can't. It's possible that there was other suitors out there that were forcing their hand a little bit, but I don't see it as being sort of the same scenario from a timing standpoint either.
Yeah, my take earlier was this is going to be an actions over words type situation, because we heard the words with SGC and we all saw how that played out. So like, they're going to have to show us now. Like Ryan and Nat can't come on here and be like, oh yeah, it's going to be its own company. It's going to be its own thing. Like, they're going to have to actually show us over the next, I said like through Q1 2026, because it's probably going to take them some time to get in there and figure everything out and whatever. But like, if in March we suddenly see a new Beckett submission wizard login thing, like that would be a good sign to me that they're legitimately wanting to keep them. If there's a better Beckett pizza tracker, if Beckett is suddenly in Power Packs, which is currently a PSA only product, if Beckett is in Graded Grails, which is currently only a PSA product, like if we start seeing those things, then that's like an actions over words type of thing. I don't know if you could think of anything else that would be like easy little changes like that would be telling, that might lead us to believe that they are legitimately going to keep them hanging around.
No, I think
to me, that's my take. Is it's we're in an actions over words situation with them now after what they did with SGC.
Yeah, I think anything from a tech standpoint signals that this is moving in a forward direction and not necessarily the boutique direction, which would be, there's a lot of similarities between when Collectors was acquired and where they stood versus where Beckett is now, when, as from the timing of this acquisition, just like kind of their perceived value, or sort of the perception in the hobby of like what they stand for, in the sense of like, PSA was thriving, but because of COVID at the time, and, there was a huge backlog and all these things sort of lined up well for them from a timing standpoint, and Beckett just didn't sort of react nearly fast enough. But there's a leadership team that's been there for a while. There's been some changes at the top, but generally speaking, there's a lot of the same people there that have been there for a long time. The technology hasn't really been upgraded much, if at all, the last 5 years since we've seen this resurgence in the hobby here. And so I think if you see if you see the team turn over a bit, that's a sign that they might be moving actually in a different direction as well. But I do think the tech would be like the most obvious thing to us as sort of the consumers or the collectors, that, yeah, there's a lot of probably the same playbook that they applied from PSA standpoint, from all the different back end systems, making them work Also, you just go to the Beckett site. There's so much. We talked about this on the call at the beginning of the year. It's just there's so many different agendas on the Beckett site when you go there today. If they could streamline that a lot more, sort of have a stronger point of view of like what they're trying to accomplish, and yeah, being way more transparent. Capturing images, right? I mean, like that's now sort of cost of entry for any grader at this stage, and you still don't get an image scan when you submit to Beckett. That was one of the first things that PSA did under the new management team. So anyways, I think any of those things, yeah, the pizza tracker, images, just sort of more transparency and sort of maybe a little bit of a figurehead would help. But yeah, I think more communication, specials.
That's a low bar to clear.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, the major thing I think ultimately that changes here, and this is not to throw shade at sort of the existing Beckett regime, but they just weren't incentivized to push, right? I mean, everybody knows they've sort of been handicapped or handcuffed, and so it's like, okay, maybe this sort of releases them and allows them to sort of experiment a bit more, prioritize a bit differently, be incentivized differently, where they're actually sort of, again, pushing the boundaries and trying to grow as opposed to sort of just like not break things. And so under that scenario, I think there's there's some meaningful upside for the brand and the potential. The thing I can't sort of totally wrap my head around though is like what's the upside or the incentive for collectors / PSA if Beckett becomes, more significant as well. I do candidly, I am of the mindset that few are in this hobby, which is like a rising tide lifts all boats, and like, if they actually they use the Beckett media assets to become much better on an education front and bring more people into the hobby. It's a name that there's clearly a whole generation still has a lot of nostalgia for. Like they can invest in that, and sort of that's an easier entry point for people who have been out of it than the people who have been in it the last 5 years. They understand who PSA is, but there's still a significant, portion of that generation that collected that has no clue what PSA's purpose is these days, where Beckett still means something. And so anyways, they wanted to try to bring a newer generation or sort of, sort of rejuvenate the older generation that was sort of had a strong affinity for Beckett. I do think there's potential for them to sort of invest in that brand and see it as just a different point of entry. Like again, SGC, I just don't feel like stood for that. And that's the difference. Like you could have made these same arguments for SGC, but SGC didn't really mean a lot to many people. I mean, they were great at sort of service, right? That was one of the things people loved about them, and transparency. But that was not necessarily like a long-standing, series of traits or brand equity that was aligned with SGC. It was one that they sort of captured and took advantage of because of PSA's weaknesses at the time. But I think Beckett just stands for a lot more. So I do think there's potential for that, which would be interesting. I personally would love it. I think a lot of people would love to see that, but I don't know that there's, again, that's a hard thing to rationalize if you're the collectors, management team. I mean, you also have to think about too, they're a company that is primed to go public in the next 18 to 24 months. And so, again, if you're telling that story of like growth, this sort of is another potential, just like slide in the deck that says like, hey, here's where we're going. Here's what we did here. Here's the upside. Much more interesting than like hey, we just brought this and we're sort of extremely, we're working on cost cutting and sort of adding to our bottom line. I think that is appealing to some degree, but I just don't know if that's the story, they want to go to market with. They might, but there's an argument to be made that this is a little bit of like a, rehab project to sort of bring some new life to this brand that could be, meaningful and sort of expand the addressable market effectively.
Yeah, I do worry specifically. The one thing I could see going away is, and this isn't like this audience's wheelhouse, I'd be real worried about CBCS, because all the language has been Beckett is not going anywhere. And though CBCS falls under that brand, CBCS doesn't have hardly any market share to begin with. So it feels like it would make way more sense to just fold them into, have them be just PSA comic grading Plano, Texas, instead of keeping them as their own independent, because they didn't really have a ton of volume anyway, compared to, I think in most people's eyes, PSA already instantly passed them just entering the market. So I think that's that's something to keep an eye on. Does CBCS survive this as a brand, or does that just instantly become PSA Comics?
Yeah, I think that's much more likely, like significantly more likely. I don't think there's, again, I'm not nearly as informed on that side of the business, but I don't think that brand stands for nearly as much. And so there's a team available to them. I could see that happening pretty quickly. And again, they're going to have to pick and choose their spots a bit. If you're going to sort of invest in building this out further, or sort of reimagining the different Beckett assets and sort of what it might look like with new resources, I don't know that that's one you would want to prioritize, given they've got they have like for example, they have one of the best data catalogs that nobody really ever talks about from a business standpoint, but a big part of their marketplace and their ability to grade cards has come from having one of the best data catalogs out there. And so I just think there's I think they're much more likely to invest in that type of I don't want to call it innovation, but sort of just like rebuild, as opposed to the CBCS stuff.
Mhm. So Junk 90s asks, like, what do you think is next? Like, they now basically completely control the grading space outside of CGC, and if you want to throw the tag bots a bone, they have their integration with PSA, they have power packs, they have their integration with eBay, like they have offers. Is there any stone in the infinity gauntlet that they're missing?
I think the offer side of things is really interesting. I also think there's an angle here for an improved registry, the sort of universal registry that people have wanted for a long time, which is actually now like much more sort of not necessarily extremely feasible, but like imaginable now that they own the different assets. I just spoke about the quality of the data, and there's like independently there's some strengths, but sort of collectively not necessarily. I think the offers is sort of really early and where that's going to go. So I would be surprised if they're going to, they have comics already. They could probably continue to sort of move down the vertical path, but I think they're much more likely to sort of lean into just like offers, repacks, marketplaces. So I would say that's probably where they're more likely. Again, you've hinted at this a few times, but there's a fine line that they have to walk with pacing these things with some of their partnerships. And so, I don't know that they're going to go full speed ahead on any of these things, but I still think that's like a more obvious path. And no, so the short answer is I don't think there's anything sort of off the wall that would be surfacing anytime in the next 12 months.
And two, I think if anything, it's an expansion of power packs. I think that's still like tip of the iceberg for them. Like, they still put like these small releases out and stuff like that. So I could see that potentially not being in its final form. And at some point, like, we all know that they're going to head down the IPO route at some point in time. And I would think prior to that, you'd kind of want to have like a little bit of quiet period of like just playing catch up on all this stuff, and not like, you're not going to want some big major shakeup right before you're about to IPO, right? Like, you would think you would want like a little period of calm to get your ducks in order, or no, is that not the case? I don't follow that stuff as closely as you probably do.
It just depends on the story, right? If you're sort of pushing this angle of like grow, and sort of the hobby expansion, then you're sort of throwing things out there that are, just aspirational at that stage, but sort of getting people's hopes up that this is bigger than sort of what we see today. The other side of it is more of like a, cash cow profitability angle. And that's also possible, but the way that the hobby's moving right now, like if you would have told me that this was 12 months ago, before all the eBay momentum, before the GameStop momentum, I would have definitely pitched this as a cost initiative. And now I'm much less likely to do so. I mean, there's still an angle there for sure, but I just think they're in a different spot. I think they're finally sort of I don't know, they're at or near sort of the valuation from like an outside perspective of what they raised at a few years ago, in the sense of like, once you raise at a peak like that, then the market sort of really halts. You're sort of in an uphill battle of proving it for a while. And I feel like now that there's a lot of momentum in the hobby and there's a lot of people paying attention to it, we're sort of now back in this growth mode here from a hobby standpoint, but also from like an outside looking in standpoint. But for example, we have people like Walmart, we have people like Dick's, we have all these companies that are sort of interested in participating again, that were sort of not on the radar for a while. And so I think that there's like a lot of growth momentum out there. And so if they were to go public in, let's say, the next 12 months, I think it's a growth story. And I think that, yeah, you're sort of pitching this as like a where could we go, not a like how can we sort of suck cash out of it. Could still be the angle, but I'm just saying, given the timing, given where the market is now, I feel like it's more likely hey, this is actually a pathway to bringing way more people into the hobby, because it's a well-known name, it's got great data, it's got other assets that the media assets that I think are relevant, Again, I don't know. I don't know sort of the role that I'm trying to think of, like Collectors Club. Like like another angle at this is thinking about PSA's weaknesses right now. And again, we've talked about this. You've talked about it on your channel. They're just, the brand stands for value and liquidity right now. Doesn't necessarily stand for being customer centric. It doesn't necessarily stand for being consistent or necessarily like high quality.
Trustworthy.
From all the yes, exactly. So I think like there's some element of this Beckett sort of servicing of those needs. They certainly don't do the service conversation. They're not meeting that need. Maybe they help to some degree with sort of, I don't know, offsetting some of that noise with consistency and sort of some integration there. I have no idea. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just sort of cautiously optimistic and sort of hopeful from my perspective. I'm candidly a little biased. I like when there's more graders out there. It makes my data more interesting. So, there's certainly a bias from my standpoint, just different stories to tell. But put it this way, I don't think anybody would be surprised if Beckett went, the boutique path in 12 months either. Like, it's a very real scenario. I think more people would be surprised if they started to pump money into it. Like that's a very,
that's what I was saying. Show don't tell. Like I want actions over words at this point with them. Should I like pre-schedule my Ryan Hogue interview for 18 months from now?
You should get it on the calendar. Yeah.
Just put that in pen now. Maybe this time I won't have to record at midnight. If you're CGC and you're opening the meeting tomorrow, what's the number one topic on your list?
Good question. It's so hard to imagine what their incentives are right now, because I do think incentives drives a lot of the, the results or the output we see. And
my general take has been Blackstone is very happy cashing the checks and probably doesn't really want to spend a ton of money on them. That's been my general stance on them for a while now.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't go the SGC route. It just, one of the reasons SGC was effective, and I've mentioned this only recently a couple times, but like, just run a concentrated special. And I talked to you about this offline once or twice, which is just like run a Topps Chrome basketball special. Hire 5 graders that only hire Topps Chrome basketball. Make sure they're good. Make sure they're very good on that product. And just like pump that as much as you can and get your numbers up, but get relevant cards into the market that are going to move. PC cards are fantastic from the collector standpoint. They're not great from like a market standpoint. They're not doing anything to sort of fuel energy in the market or momentum in the market. And CGC tends to get a lot more niche stuff too. And sort of, so I think there's potential for them to be relevant. It's for them to sort of push a little bit from a promotional standpoint, but we know the bottleneck is grading and operations are limiting. So if you do the SGC concentration, concentrated effort, I think that can go a meaningful ways towards making them a little bit more relevant and seeing higher volume. Again, TCG is fine. I'm speaking only to sports, by the way. The TCG
they do great.
Doing fine.
Right, so real quick, just our special guest number 3 in the back. Give me a thumbs up if you're good. All right, he's good. To come celebrate the death of CBCS. Swaggle House.
I should have worn my all black clothing right now. This is not appropriate attire for this funeral.
I don't know. Swags, have you and Gemrate ever actually been together on a live stream? I don't know.
No, I haven't actually. But big fan of everything you do, Ryan. And I was like, Rob always tells us like, as soon as the pop report for PSA Comics ever comes out, that you might actually start to pick that up. So that would be really exciting, at least for me, to be able to use you to make more content. I've
been pressuring him for like 3 years. I'm like, Ryan, comics, come on.
We need it.
It's on my radar. It's going to happen. It's just, once the data's there, it's going to happen. So I'm excited to get that out there.
Sooner than we all think. Swags, does CBCS survive, or were they already dead before today?
Honestly, they were already pretty dead, at least in terms of sentiment within the community. I mean, I don't know. For all I know, like they could be like a very profitable business. Like maybe I'm sure that they have like a decent customer base, and they were kind of at least keeping the lights on, so to speak. But when PSA came in, that took out so much. Like the PSA instantly became the number 2 grading option for the comic book side, and at that point, CBCS was like a very flimsy number 2 option. I mean, at one point they had a little bit of clout, a little bit of esteem as far as like comic book collectors are concerned, but over the years and stuff, they really fell further and further away from being that number 2 to CGC. And then when PSA came in, it looked bad for them. And now, especially with this announcement, I just kind of feel like what's the point of using CBCS when you can have PSA and for PSA, with this acquisition, like they say that they're going to, I'm sure you guys covered this. They say they're going to be continuing to keep it going and running things. But at the same time, like, why would they? Like, I feel like after a while, like, these things get smooth.
They didn't say anything about CBCS. If you want to get technical.
Fair. Yeah, that's true. I mean, they haven't. Well, I don't know. Have there been more details since earlier today as far as like the specifics that have come out? But like,
so it's Beckett, Beckett grading, CBCS, Beckett autograph authentication, the price guide, and the media side, like printing. I like print basically. So it's everything, but everything under the collectivists other than Dragon Shield and I'm blanking on the other one.
Southern Hobby.
Southern Hobby.
They're not moving.
Yeah.
Neither of those are going?
No, neither one of those are going.
Oh,
those are staying under the collectivist brand. So it's just basically all the Beckett media properties and the grading properties. But to me, if I'm Collectors Universe buying them, I'm like, oh, look, more comic book graders. Oh, look, we could grade comic books out of 2 offices. CBCS is already fledgling, and we have our brand new baby that we're trying to get off the ground. Let's just Thanos snap away one of the minor competitors.
Exactly. And they, it was a big scandal last year or however long it was ago where the head grader of CBCS went over to PSA and it was all this, talk of trade secrets getting carried over and all this hoopla. And so, and I know that PSA has been actively hiring graders, as they continue to like build out their entire infrastructure. So if they have very similar grading standards and structures, it just makes sense that they are going to poach, the top graders from CBCS and bring them over to PSA. And there's so many just conflicts too. Like if PSA wants to have exclusive, signed, signings with certain writers and artists, and CBCS is already doing that. Like, why would they want those things to happen? So it just, I don't know. If I was an employee at CBCS, I would be brushing up my LinkedIn profile, to be honest.
Well, to your point though, like I think it would be an easy transition because most of those graders already know the system. Like the PSA is really seems like they're modeled after CBCS, and PSA might just say, okay, put the red, white, and blue on and just stay right in Texas, and they'll just have 2 grading offices. I mean, PSA is known to have multiple grading offices across the country in multiple countries, so it could be hey, cool, great. We get more graders right off the get, and we don't have to go out and hire and train them.
Yeah,
so that would be the one part of this whole thing that I would be the most nervous for is CBCS, without a doubt.
I could imagine a world where maybe not too long from now you start to hear like, oh, you can cross grade your CBCS book to PSA and vice versa, even though like no one's really going to do that,
So people speculated on that when they acquired SGC like 2 years ago now. I can't believe that was almost 2 years ago. It's freaking time, man. And that never really happened. So I don't know that I would put a lot of stock into that besides the normal crossover experience. Like you're not just automatically going to get if you have a CBCS 9.8, you're not automatically going to get a CGC 9.8 or anything like that.
You're gonna get a PSA 10.
Yes. Ryan, what I don't know if you ran the numbers now. Like, what percentage of the grading market does Collectors Universe control now? Have you looked? Have you done the math on that yet? Have you just based it off of your
80%? It's 80. It's 80. I think it was close to 80 when they acquired SGC, and it's still around 80 because CGC's gotten bigger, meaningfully bigger since then, and so they're kind of just getting back to that 80 again. It's not the CGC is really sort of the big variable there, which is again, PSA probably loves CGC more than anybody right now because it makes them easier to sort of do these without sort of raising too many flags, because again, I don't think that 80% is gonna bring more attention to this transaction and cause them any or bring any headwinds.
I'm gonna firmly disagree with this junk 90s comment. no way you're paying, basically no way you're buying a grading company for the graders. They've already done it once. they have already done it once with SGC. So they've literally shown us that it does make sense. PSA knows. They opened a brand new office in Jersey and staffed it. They know exactly how much money that costs to do. So they literally have the playbook for it. So they would know whether it's cheaper or more expensive or not. I mentioned this earlier, Ryan, before you hopped on. There's an interesting angle on the TCG side of this because you've done that custom report for me, that there are some TCG aspects that Beckett excels in that PSA does not. Like, they get numbers because they're so big, but from like a percentage of business standpoint, like Beckett does really well in One Piece, and One Piece is gaining a ton of steam right now. They do really well. And what was the other one, like Dragon Ball or something, or one of the Disney ones? I don't remember. It's been a long time.
Magic, Dragon Ball, yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, you can kind of speak to it, but like they have a niche little market on some of those TCGs where it really is actually a bigger part of their TCG business than just Pokemon, like it is with PSA.
Yeah, I mean, even like, just Japanese Pokemon matters for them too, because anytime where everything grades so highly and the 10, make a bigger difference, Beckett's going to see things on the margins where the pristine or the black label is going to differentiate it. But yeah, TCG's been doing well for them. I mean, as you sort of see more print on demand too, that's still helped them from a sports card side. They definitely, let's put it this way, they definitely see different cards go through their doors than an SGC was, or even PSA candidly gets. So it's I would say it's more complementary there in many ways. They're not doing a ton of vintage. They're doing outliers to what sort of the normal PSA day-to-day sort of grading activity looks like. So, there's some incremental activity there, which I don't know if that means it's more likely that they'd consume them to bring that, in-house, or it's just nice to have that complementary business under their same one roof.
Yeah. Swags, what's been the early, I mean, do people really care about CBCS? Like, what's been the early comments on your video? Like, have you seen much feedback in the comic space on this?
Yeah, I think the early sentiment is like, oh, this is a terrible thing. Like, it's bad. There's a lot of people that are, gung ho CBCS fans. Every time you make a grading company screw up video, there's always a large portion of the audience that is like, and this is why CBCS should be bigger than PSA or CGC. Those voices are pretty amplified right now, like being upset about it. There's also a lot of just general grading is a scam sort of thing, and this is the board coming in swallowing everything. So this is really bad for collectors. I don't know if that's the similar sentiment within the card space. Maybe you guys already talked about it. But I was going to ask what's the value that PSA is really getting here from acquiring Beckett? Maybe you guys already talked about that. But then, as you were saying, with the kind of the Eastern cards and things like that, we did actually talk the other night on our podcast about how Beckett is grading the mangas, and that had like that big sale. And so there's maybe, I guess, there's these tiny niche elements that that are appealing to PSA, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I know Ryan. We did talk about this a little bit earlier. Like, there is this weird thing that no one really knows about other than Ryan, because he lives in the weeds on this stuff. Beckett has like, and you could get more specific on it if you want, Ryan, about like the data space that they have, like, and what the value might be on that from just a pure like database perspective. There's some value in that beyond like all the other stuff that none of us would ever even think about.
Most companies in our space sort of onboard or sort of attention's brought to a card when they first see it, right? Like, it doesn't actually sort of exist in their world until it comes through the doors. And so, but Beckett's been different. Beckett has always been building out the checklist and building the catalog well in advance, which just helps them in many different ways. They can sort of much more easily sort of list cards. That's why they were able to build a marketplace and things like that. They're just much more aware. And Kaylee, like, one of the biggest points of friction for any new company in our space is it's really hard to understand what exists. Like, everybody sort of has to go down that same route of like, if you're scanning cards, you have to make sure that, it's a real big hurdle in finding scale in our industry right now. And there's an angle where like Beckett becomes a, sort of a way for them to build a stronger ecosystem, which again, that's sort of a different picture than has been painted in our space for a while. I just think it's been like much more like a gated or walled community. Like, they're sucking out profits and sort of making as much money as they can. But I do like this idea of like, you know, if you really wanted to sort of, again, rising tide lifts all boats and sort of make better data available, you know, for example, I don't want to go down this path too deeply, but like, you know, if in our world, in the card world, Topps releases checklists, sometimes on time. Panini did the same thing to some degree, but Panini at least releases a full checklist. Topps releases like the most basic checklist of all time. It's in a PDF. It's really hard to make use of. People are scrambling all over the time to see like what's available. You don't necessarily feel comfortable even buying. You're buying packs of cards when it first comes out. You're buying it at breaks. You're not even sure sort of like what exists or sort of what to expect. There's sort of a world where like, you know, data becomes a little more front and center and people sort of have more confidence participating in our hobby. And that's how it sort of, you know, hopefully builds on itself. Like right now we have a lot of good momentum, but momentum is sort of being supported by things like repacks and stuff like that, which are fine in the short term. But you know, nobody sort of knows what the long-term future looks like for those things. Anyways, Beckett's like one of the few companies, long story short, Beckett's one of the few companies that has an asset there that very few companies in our space have available to them. And there's a lot of optionality with having something like that. And I don't know necessarily it's the exact same from the comic standpoint, but it definitely applies from a card standpoint.
ASMR asks, do you think collectors will officially kill off SGC or Beckett in the near future? I mean, I think Beckett TBD. I think SGC, if one was going to die first, would definitely be the case. And I wanted to use this to ask you, Ryan, how has what's December looking like so far with SGC? Are we still continuing to see a backward slide, or have they finally kind of bottomed out?
They've
or is it too soon to
bottomed
say?
out in the near term. Now they'll do roughly the same as what they did in November from like a daily basis. They'll do around 40K, you know, which is probably where they're going to be for the, you know, near future. So, and Beckett's trying to do about the same that they've been doing. Like they're not seeing some sort of, you know, unforeseen momentum publicly. You know, they're going to end up doing like 80 or 85K, which is a good number for them from where they were. And the PSA, as we know, is sort of like right on the brink
2
of
million.
breaking 2 million. Yeah. So. And CGC is still, you know, doing big numbers as well. So, but the last 3 months have looked pretty similar.
Have you, the CGC numbers, have you noticed anything? And I don't know how long, if you've been like really diving in the sports side specifically, has there been any change on the sports side? Like, are they getting, I'm going to phrase this in a way that's probably unkind. Like, are they getting more legitimate cards in on the sports side, or are we still seeing a lot of like fluff in the numbers, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole purpose of this iconic tracker, which I also want to do for TCG, and I've started to do in the background here, which is, you know, right now the monthly report is on the high volume stuff. It's kind of, again, the fast food version of it. We also have this iconic tracker, which is tracking cards of significance and what the market share looks like there. And CGC is still pretty absent from that report, unfortunately, which just doesn't mean they're not doing well, but it just means like people aren't willing to put the high value cards necessarily in front of them yet, or at the scale that they do with the other graders. They're not really sort of chipping away, or if they are, it's pretty small. Whereas that's where actually Beckett's still like highly relevant. Like you'll still see very rare grails that are showing up, you know, at an equal weight to what you see go through the PSA doors with Beckett sometimes. And, you know, SGC was doing that with the vintage side a bit, with some of the, you know, older baseball cards and things like that. But it's definitely, Beckett's still highly relevant there, whereas CGC, not really on the sports side. You know, again, that's where they're sort of, you know, they filled a void with niche PC. And that's why I think they'd be well suited to do like a high volume, concentrated special that's like towards something that's very relevant right now. Again, Topps Chrome, for example. But they're not doing anything on like the iconic side that's sort of causing any noise or sort of bringing attention.
Has SGC's numbers skewed more vintage? Chat was asking. Like, are we seeing like a little bit less of the ultra modern and it filtering a little bit more? I'm sure it wouldn't be a huge move, but like small percentage point bases.
Yeah, it's moving in that direction. It's going to keep moving there too. They still have some, I don't know if it's sort of older sets that sort of are working through the backlog there, but if you look at sort of like the top sets that we publish with the monthly data for SGC on we don't publish that on the website. I mean, on the Instagram, we publish it on the website and in our email, but it's all vintage now, and it's going to stay that way, you know, for the foreseeable future, unless something dramatic happens there. And so it's moving a couple percent every month in that direction. You know, I think last month it was like 40% vintage. You know, it's working its way to 50-50. I wouldn't be surprised to sort of see it, you know, continue to move past that in the next 12 months.
Swag, do you have anything for Ryan just off the top of your head? I know you two don't get to interact very often, so if you have any questions for him, feel free to throw them in there. I'll let you think for a second, but I do want to ask, Ryan, do you have, and I'll let you dive into this as deep as you want to because I don't want to get you in trouble. Do you have any hot takes on like PSA's last 7 to 10 business days with the grade swapping stuff and just like the general like lack of consistency of grades and all the narrative that's kind of come out of that?
No, they've been very thoughtful and intentional about smoothing demand on their side, and that's why, we've seen 3 months that look pretty similar, and I think that they, even if people did sort of at scale stop submitting to PSA or sort of put the brakes up, it would be 3 or 4 months before we'd even see a blip in the numbers. They can, if anything, I've been joking, but I'm like, they're going to actually put more out in the numbers to sort of show that it's having no impact and that they're actually thriving. Like, I think it's more likely. And we did see that last week. They had the first day that they passed 100K ever outside of one, which was like a little bit of like a data catch up on their end. And so like, I think it's more likely that we see the numbers even higher in the near term, where they're sort of trying to show how much momentum they have and that they can't be stopped. And again,
I wonder how much.
That's not what people want to hear, but it would be. Point is it would be many months. It'd be 3 or 4 months at the earliest before we'd even see a dent.
Yeah. Swags, I know this is a little out of your wheelhouse, but do you think, just based off kind of what you follow in the card world and in comics, do you think this acquisition of Beckett kind of knocks the PSA story off the radar? Like, we always talk about how like what's the next thing, and then the previous thing doesn't really matter anymore. I mean, these two are kind of closely related because they're both grading based. But like, are we still hearing, like, do you think when you load up your card YouTube watch list that you're still going to be hearing a ton about grade swapping and, PSA shenanigans?
Oh, I do think that the narrative shifts with this for sure, because this story becomes about like nostalgia for the Beckett brand and like, what does this mean? And asks all these other questions that like the conversation will get hijacked or steered that way. Like, it's kind of like what we talked about the other night on our show, where, I don't know if the grade swap scandal is going to have any sort of a true meaningful change as far as like the bottom line of their numbers. I mean, I'm sure they're going to lose some customers over, the uproar to it. But what's going to stick around is that culture of collector who just forever is scorned on PSA, or there's just going to be memes forever and jokes in comment sections or snarky remarks anytime they make an Instagram post where you'll see somebody go like, oh, nines magically turning to tens. Like there'll just be like very, very, the quips everywhere. So you'll still see that. But I do think that this becomes the newest headline news, most certainly. And as we know, when you make content, it's like everything's in like kind of a 7-day out of sight, out of mind cycle. So,
Ryan, can you think of, I know you don't make content, you tangentially make content. Can you think of a crazier last 30 days that we've had since COVID? Like starting with the Beckett podcast through Snipe, through now double PSA and massive stories, and a few, and like top chrome basketball shenanigans, and like there's some other stuff in there that doesn't even that in any other time period would be like a big deal. Like, did top pull product off the Dutch auction, like Fanatics cutting breakers would normally be like a headline story, and that stuff's not even like top 5.
Yeah, this is I think it's so close to our world too, and grading is so sort of polarizing and tribal that it just sort of is, resonated on a number of fronts. And then obviously, we're not that far away from the upcharges conversation. Like, part of the I mentioned this to you offline
I forgot about the upcharge
right? Like
thing.
that one of the things that sort of surfaced over the last few weeks, and to answer your question, I can't remember any. I'm certainly biased by the near term, but I mean, there's a lot of built up more momentum of just like PSA is not doing enough. Like, everybody knows they're printing money, and there's just a lot of people who are frustrated, right? Like, PSA is a liquidity vehicle, and again, I've mentioned this before too, but like they are creating a lot of liquidity vehicles through them, in the sense of like you can now list to eBay and there's offers and all these things. But the fastest path to getting liquidity is actually just getting your cards back faster, and so that's getting pushed out for the majority of their audience. and there's just a lot of frustration. In the meantime, prices have gone up and the transparency has not gotten any better. And so we're seeing, like, not only is there the news cycle not favorable in that sense, there's just a lot of pent up sort of frustration with where PSA stands in the market as sort of this, 800-pound gorilla, but that they don't feel like they're benefiting from it, if at all. And so we're just hearing a lot of noise. And the thing that I actually think that happened, just to sort of close the loop on the question earlier about the controversy with the grade swaps, they just have a lot going on. That's the reality of it. And this isn't going to make them have less go on. So, there's just more risk, and the margin for error increases in the meantime. And so they're just going to continue to sort of be vulnerable there. And so they just have to make sure they're buttoned up and sort of do a lot of the blocking and tackling. I think the stuff that you sort of spoke to on your videos last week were right. Like, I would love for them to just sort of like throw people a bone at the expense of profits and say, like, yeah, graders notes everywhere now. We're just going to, like, the floodgates are open. We're going to be more transparent. We're going to follow sort of the comic book path a little bit. Like, that's the stuff that they might need to do to sort of reclaim some brand equity while they're going to be sort of, again, distracted, and there's a long-term vision, I'm sure, for why they're distracted, but in the near term, a lot of people don't feel like they're benefiting.
I do feel like the graders notes thing is almost required for them at this point. Like, I get why they're already backlogged, that would slow them down even more, but I think it's the one thing that they can turn to kind of throw us a bone of transparency. I don't know how else they do it beyond graders notes, or at least maybe offering it to slightly lower pricing tiers beyond. I don't even know what it is on right now. Is it just Express and Super Express? Is that it? I can't remember.
It's expensive. It's like $150. So
yeah, like filter that down to like maybe Value Plus or whatever their stupid grading tiers are. I don't know, but
it is complicated. That's another.
Maybe now they're gonna do subgrades on their label because now they have the Beckett trade secrets.
No, they definitely don't.
They will not do that. I know that. They will not do that.
No, and they don't want 9.5s either. That's for sure as well.
Oh yeah, I know.
They hate the 9.5. They absolutely cannot hate the 9.5. I'm just kind of catching up on chat. If you have anything for Ryan Swags, feel free to fire it out there. I'm just gonna scroll through chat real quick. I know you two guys don't get to chat real often.
Yeah, I don't have anything yet other than once this PSA pop report comes out, I'm going to be stalking your account for sure. If you're going to be reporting on that'll be interesting to see.
Do you think? Swag, sorry, not to cut you off, but on that note, do you actually think, like, it took a little bit of time before that sort of resonated in our hobby? It was relevant just because there was a pretty big backlog at the time. And I was only doing PSA to start. And it was just sort of windowing, like, what the heck are people even sending? That's sort of creating a 14 million card backlog. And it was sort of slowly picked up momentum, and I brought on other graders. But do you feel like there was a reasonable amount of sort of pent up demand for that kind of content? Just because, again, it's very sort of polarizing in our space, the grading ecosystem. Do you feel like that exists in the comic world nearly as much? I mean, because it's been so dominated,
it's even worse
for the
in the
most
comic
part.
world.
Yeah.
The comic world is it's very similar to trading cards, but I think that there's definitely more of an allergy to just the grading and that the entire economy that exists within like the collectible side of it. It's more akin. I feel like comics is more akin to like the sentiment within maybe Magic the Gathering trading card players, where like there's that. Like, oh, why are you putting these cards are meant to be played with, not to actually be, collected. Whereas in sports cards, it's kind of okay because like the card is just the card, and in Pokemon, like nobody actually plays Pokemon, everyone just grades Pokemon. So that economy has just formed to be what it is. So like comics are more similar to that culture within, I'd say, like Magic the Gathering, where they're not as gung ho as far as like grading and values and pop reports and census and those types of things.
Yeah, it feels like your agenda's a little more obvious when you're grading comics, and that's sort of, not necessarily like, yeah, I'm sure there's a certain segment of that hobby that frowns on it, or it's frowned upon.
Yeah.
I will say the nice thing.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I'll let you two cook. Go ahead.
Well, I'll just say the nice thing is too, one of the things just on the data side I've been waiting for, that CGC not finally, but they took the infrastructure from a technology standpoint on the card side, and they redid their comic pop report last week. and it's phenomenal now. It's so much easier to understand. And also, a side effect of that is that I can report on their data much more easily. So, not only will we have PSA data when their pop report is finally published, but I can do basically take the same formula for what I've been doing for sports cards and I could have done it with CGC for a while here, but it was so much more complicated under the old format, and this is much more streamlined. So anyways, I'm excited to get more into the weeds with it because they have the same catalog problem I was talking about before that Beckett sort of addresses. CGC had that previously, and now they've sort of laid it out in a much cleaner format. So this is like a Q1 kind of initiative. It's not that far away.
So will you be able to break things down by like era and stuff like you do
Everything.
for cards?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's so much better. You had to, again, you had to know the comic landscape to sort of query their database appropriately before. And I wasn't comfortable doing that at scale like that. I wouldn't miss things. Now they've given you the full understanding of here's what exists in the space. And it's just well structured, which is awesome. I mean, it's good for the end user, but it's also great for me as a data consumer.
Swags can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but I think a report that you would at least get a lot of traction with comic book content creators would be something at the end of the month that shows any new 9.9s and 10.0s that popped on the pop report, or at least 10.0s at minimum. Like the comic content creators guys, like Swags and Automatic would be running to a microphone to make content off of something that was just like, here's all the new 9.9s and 10.0s that were added because they're so rare. It's basically like a black label for Beckett, and they significantly outsell the lower grades, like even by a wider margin than a black label does. So like 1.10.0 coming to the pop report on like an X-Men 266 or even a 9.9 would like drastically have major ramifications on that marketplace. Correct, Swag?
Yeah, no, 100%. Especially since like there's so many comics that don't have a 9.9 or don't have a 10 when in all reality they should. It's like you have these keys that came out in the 90s, and like one of them, like a ASM 300, has like a 9.9, and so like it stands to reason that like, well, why isn't this other comic book that came out within the same time frame, like why does this key not have any 9.9? So there's just so many of these types of books that like CGC over the years, as we've talked about many times, like they were just putting 9.8 on it, right? They just like weren't giving 9.9s or 10s for like comic books that deserved it. And now they're kind of in this space, whether it's because PSA and they feel the pressure, or it's grade creep, or whatever you want to call it. Now they're kind of in this place where they feel like, maybe we should start to give this out, or we should start to open it up. So I say that to say there's a lot of comics that don't have those crazy grades on it that as soon as they pop up, which I'm assuming that they will, everyone's going to lose their mind. Like if you have like like when the Giant Size X-Men 1 had a 9.9 pop up, like that was like one of the biggest stories of the year. And I don't know if like the first appearance of Punisher has a 9.9, or the first appearance of Ghost Rider, all these characters that we all know, like there's got to be books that have that possibility. So if you have 9.9s and 10s showing up on the data that could be reported on, like that's content for days for sure. Especially also with the PSA, as we talked about, like how many 10s are they going to be giving out? Like we kind of joke about like, they're like going to be the Oprah Winfrey of giving out 10s over on their comic side. But I mean, that's something that is still, we're all still really curious. Like how hard are they going to be grading over there? Like, is it really going to be the case that, they're going to give Ultimate Fallout 4 a bunch of 10.0s when it comes out, or what? But we're all patiently waiting.
That's cool. One of the things I'm excited to launch early in 2026, which seems like it's going to be super relevant for comics too, is basically like turning the pop report into a feed, but just selecting cards that you would like to watch or comics that you'd like to watch, so that any time that those cards, a new issue is graded or a new card hits the grading floor, you can see what it's graded, and like just again, a much more targeted sort of customized pop reports, but in like a feed view instead. So it seems like when those 9.9s and 10s hit, that it means sort of the same thing as when a Grail or a Ghost sort of hits the grading floor in the card space.
Yeah, you'll get a lot of run. Like I said, I don't know how many there might be a small subset of people that care about that, but there'll be people that really care about seeing that level of data. And like you said, like we both said, that could really swing the values of some stuff. If all of a sudden there's only 199 or one PSA 10 of a certain Griffey card or something, and all of a sudden another one pops up, like the one that you have isn't so rare anymore, you know, and that has cascading effects on down the pop sometimes.
Yeah. I kind of want to do what PSA has done too, to some degree. I've wanted to do it for a little while, a little bit different, but like build a little bit of a marketplace on top of it too. So like, you know, when that does hit, you're sort of notified. So a little bit more of like the offers program, but not sort of through the back door, but more sort of like available to everybody to say, hey, when that 99 hits, I'm a buyer, and put your name there, buy it, and sort of have like when things hit, just people basically being able to better understand like where there's sort of a concentration of demand or sort of excitement around things that have never surfaced or haven't surfaced in a long time, but kind of, you know, reimagining sort of not necessarily a marketplace, but just thinking about offers a little bit differently. I guess not necessarily offer, it's sort of just a interest signal. It could be offers in theory, but you know, the cards wouldn't have been graded yet, or the, you know, the books wouldn't have been graded.
When are we getting the what did I call it? The velocity tracker or something? What was the fancy
It's coming.
term?
That's not okay. This roadmap just got pushed. Everything's coming in Q2 because I'm already saying too much is going to happen in Q1. But yeah, that's coming. There's a lot going on behind the scenes here.
So for chat and for swag that might not know this, what I was, and I don't even know the best way to explain this, was there's some sort of number out there of like a collectible has so much on the pop report, but it doesn't transact as often as something similar, and that kind of tells you that it's more of like a collector card because they're being held longer, like they're not getting flipped as often. It's like, oh cool, I got this card and now it's going to go sit on my case or on my wall and I'm not selling it anytime soon. Like it's not, and there could be another card that has very similar population data, and maybe it's transacting all the time because no one actually truly wants to own it. They just want to make 10% on it. So I feel like there's something there of findings, like it would basically be a report of end user cards, I think is how I termed it when we talked at the National about it, Ryan. I don't remember. I think that was my thought process was basically trying to use data to find end user cards. And the example that I used on the sports side was the I think is it 08 or 09, the LeBron Kobe refractor.
It's the 08,
just that card into the refractor specifically, because the pop on that is decent enough that it should I feel like it should transact more than it does. And like that was my example card for that. And like there's stuff because that's Kobe collectors want it, LeBron collectors want it. It's a really nice card. It's an iconic image. So it kind of gets into people's collections and then doesn't leave regardless of what the price does.
Yeah, that's cool.
The card space is so reliant on last comp that I am excited to bring anything to market that will help people move beyond that or think outside of that sort of narrow frame of reference that, you know, this card moves once a year or once every 5 years, as opposed to the things that we see that move weekly or monthly or always showing up on, you know, at the auction houses. And so to the degree that we can provide more sort of information and signal on that stuff, I think is, I'm excited to do that. We're real close on that as well. That one's not more complicated. I'm just trying to think about the right way of sort of positioning it and sort of making it available. But yeah, anything that sort of helps people move a little bit away from, and Hoj touched on this recently on a podcast a couple weeks ago, but like, you know, it's just unfortunate we're so beholden to the last sale that it's sort of just like really everything's so transactional. And so anyways, that's why I think Beckett again sort of sits in this unique spot of like they can contextualize cards in a way that most people don't. They just don't do it for you very easily. This concept of having a catalog, a very robust catalog, is pretty, you know, it's very rare in our space. And anything that sort of can help people understand significance of cards, sets, players, their catalog, there's a lot of value to be had there. So anyways, I think if I'm collectors and I'm thinking about like ways to sort of move us away from just the last comp mattering, there's a big opportunity with that Beckett asset.
Swag, can you think of any comics that would fall into like that kind of like that there's, you know, maybe there's a 500, maybe a 500 is too large of a number. There's like 109/8 of something on the board, and it just for whatever reason they just don't come to market that often. Is there any like one or two that jumps to mind for you that's like not constantly getting flipped.
I think that there's probably some that you could pull out. Like, I mean, obviously, a lot of it's going to be like Golden Age comic books are going to move a lot less often, which that's more
There's also
akin to
way
like,
less of them too.
yeah,
On the
that's
center.
akin to like vintage sports cards where there's just so many so much less of them to even possibly transact. But there's definitely like super obscure, oh, it's a newsstand Mark Jeweler, such and such, blah, blah, blah variant that maybe those would be interesting things to see that transact less or yeah, like there'd be some way. There's definitely some books. I'd have to think about like which ones would actually show up in that way. But yeah, it'd be cool to see it. It kind of reminds me of they always say this in like the crypto space, or if people are talking about Bitcoin, they'll always like talk about, oh, how much is on chain versus like in a cold wallet right now, and like what the amount of a certain crypto that is actually being held in cold storage, which can be an indication of availability for it, and how and it is essentially, it says like how much people are actually trying to save it. And similarly, I guess in the collecting world, be like, oh, people that actually just want to have this and hold on to it. So it'd be cool to see that.
Is there a set registry concept in the comic world? Like, is that relevant? I mean, is it
Yeah.
as useful as it is? Like in our world, for a long time, that was a driving force behind irrational pricing. And I don't know if that sort of plays in the comic world, or if, for example, if PSA and CGC become, equal competitors in the space, does a good set registry sort of differentiate them?
It's funny because CGC definitely has a set registry, and there used to be like a pretty like heavy collector base that would be into it on the CGC forums. But I feel like that, I don't know, that culture has not transitioned over like very well in these last like handful of years since like the explosion of collectibles and things of that nature. Like it's pretty obscure, but there is that component. There is definitely a registry.
Is there anything else, Swags, that you could think of that the comic folks would want to see from like gem rate data besides like the 9910 thing, or just a general like, oh, it's interesting to see how much CGC graded last month, like at a very base level?
I think to me, I think it'll be the most interesting thing to me will be how much can PSA gain ground, So it'll be like over the long term, as like if you start to see both companies grading comic books, like is PSA eating into that margin, or is the pool just expanding? Like is if more things are getting sent to PSA, but CGC is keeping its normal pace, then that says to me that PSA is onboarding their trading card customers into the comic book space, which would also be like a cool thing to see.
You know me, Manu, and I actually have my X-Men books on the CGC set registry. So you do know one. I don't know how current it is. I don't know that it's up to date, but I definitely have some in there for sure. For Sarah, can you do this, Ryan?
For Sarah, to some degree, this is kind of more of what we're talking. Not exactly though. This would be more proxies for like float, like again, sort of copies that are available in the market or that are sort of like tucked away. In theory, but it would depend on sort of like what the specific cards are we're talking about. Like serial number cards, for example, would be easier to do for something that obviously the print run's undisclosed.
Is this now a monopoly? Is Nat Turner got his monocle in, his top hat, and his
no? They love CGC.
No, I was going to ask you. Rob, you have the meme of the Infinity Gauntlet, which I've seen in other people posting on their stuff, and I included the picture of Vince McMahon after he bought WCW. But like, what do you think the end game is here? Like, one to go. Do you think like PSA comes for CGC at some point? Like, do you think that that's even an aspiration?
I think this was the one to go.
This was the one to go.
Like, I think this was the final stone.
I see. Why wouldn't you think CGC would be?
I think they almost, I mean, I am not Paul Lesko. I almost wonder if the CGC is let's keep the government honest. You know what I mean? Like we need one out there, so it might as well be them type situation.
Right.
I don't know. Ryan, what do you think on that?
I don't know how you do this and read the comments at the same time. I'm always impressed because I cannot. This is too funny. God, what was the question?
Is
distracted.
Nat Turner now Mr. Monopoly?
No, I think no, because Fanatics matters too much and has too much leverage. I think that they will make sure that CGC stays relevant too to some degree, and they already partnered with them, like with Fanatics Collective, things like that. I do think like there's incentive. Somebody had asked me offline if, and I can't remember. I think we touched on it briefly at the start. Like, why was Fanatics a bidder here? And probably not, given how much they have going on right now. But doesn't mean that they don't want to be in this space ultimately. And so I would not be surprised if CGC sort of continues to be in like prove it that you're going to continue to grow and scale and that there's sort of more opportunities there. But I also could see like them working closely with Fanatics, and I don't know. I just think CGC's well enough positioned from a TCG standpoint that they'll be around, and that there's still a ton of room for them to expand, obviously in sports. But they need an angle. They need an angle hard, but like there's opportunity for sure. There's a lot of people now that are going to be sort of up for grabs from I just want an alternative standpoint. So I don't know. This again, I don't think there's going to be any. We saw what happened with SGC and nobody cared. And I don't, from like a regulatory / monopoly standpoint, and I don't think anybody's going to sort of be asking questions of this either. And again, I think PSA probably is rooting to some degree for CGC to stay extremely relevant because it keeps, lets them do what they want to do without sort of there being quite a lot of questions asked.
I did ask the question earlier, the joke of like, who is better who in the current state of things, who is actually better to save Beckett or Collector's Universe? Like if you had to like actually put money
it's not
on
even
that,
close.
like,
Collectors is better. Yeah, Collectors is way better suited to save
Beckett
Beckett.
has showed us that they can't save themselves. So
yeah, it does seem like with PSA and not knowing too much about like their ultimate goals and Nat Turner and stuff. It just from an outside looking in, with the amount of partnerships that they have been doing, with companies like GameStop and integrations with eBay and all these other affiliations that they have, it does feel like the goal for them is like, okay, how do we have to be like the go-to collectible company. We have to clean it up, like get rid of all these other like weird, grading companies that are out there that makes this thing messy. Like, we talked about on our show last week about how collecting as like a vertical is becoming its own sort of like entertainment field. There was that Gary Vee clip that was going around, which I totally agree with what he was saying there. And it's like, how do you create a culture and an ecosystem where collecting can thrive? And I think that you just have to have like one grading company to rule them all, that gets to be the main partner to all these other like concentric circles of industries and business, where you can have like all these integrations. So that to me would be what I think that would be his ultimate goal with this. And I don't know. I mean, it might be a while, but who knows? Maybe 10, 15 years from now, maybe CGC does become that seventh stone in the gauntlet.
Yeah, and that Joe says one company cannot monopolize the whole market. They would point at CGC and said that would basically say that they are, like I said earlier, they were the number 2 yesterday, and they're clearly the number 2 today. So, especially in the TCG space, and honestly, as sad as it sounds, that might matter more than sports cards right now to a degree. I don't know. All right, gentlemen, let's kind of wind things down here. I've been going for almost 2 hours on this emergency live. Swags, I'll start and we'll just kind of go around the horn with some final thoughts. I think my biggest one goes to what I spoke to earlier. Actions over words. They gave us the words when they acquired SGC, and it was all nonsense. We all saw how that ended, and they're going to give us the same words for this Beckett acquisition. And I think they need to actually, and it's not going to happen tomorrow or next week. I'll probably give them through Q1 2026 to show us something, show us that they're actually making improvements, making changes over there before I believe that this just isn't just boutique 2.0. I'll throw it to Swags.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying all the right things. That they want to keep the brand its own thing, and they're going to run them separately. But and that could very well be their intention, but maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. Eventually there's going to be a time when the bean counters are looking at stuff and they're like, why are we allocating resources to two different grading companies. This won't make sense. And whether it be collectibles or any other industry, film, entertainment, whatever, anytime you have mergers and acquisitions like this, eventually the bigger company swallows up the smaller one. So I think that this is definitely going to be the end for CBCS, most certainly. And Beckett, I don't know how much brand value there is in that golden B logo. I think that there is some, but to me, it feels like at some point we will just be left with PSA.
The Beckett brand loyalty thing is an interesting piece because I think people over, I don't know, what would you say, Ryan, 35 probably have a lot of brand loyalty to Beckett. I would say people 25 and under probably could give two shits about Beckett.
Oh yeah, I think that's 100% true. That's how I think there's something to this idea that they actually continue to sort of invest in the Beckett brand, but maybe Beckett grading does go away. Maybe they start to just slowly sort of offer, a program to sort of reholder with PSA regrade at discounts and things like that. But 13 million slabs is a number that is significant to them, and that's what Beckett has out there in the market today. But yeah, I think you just have to be thinking that the Beckett brand that we know though doesn't stand for grading. It stands for just like adding value and content and the media side of it, which is kind of been okay in the last 5 years, but not really. Again, it's kind of fallen behind that they're just not super communicative and transparent at this stage, and the media side of it has sort of fallen suit there. And so if they invested in the Beckett media side, that would be really interesting to sort of see what could happen there, and if Beckett grading sort of got pushed aside or sort of minimized, that'd be interesting. But yes, Beckett's only relevant for the most part to the 35 plus crowd. If you transact and you're a flipper or you're like a liquidity person, Beckett slabs are a nuisance to you because you have to spend more time figuring out how to comp it.
Yeah. I talked about this very early on in the stream. We could close out on this. I think that there is a risk to Beckett pricing, especially on more common ultra modern stuff. And I use the SGC comp of like SGC vintage has been fine. Like their prices really haven't fluctuated that much for singles. And I think the Beckett equivalent to that would be like 90s, 2000s inserts, like Griffey, Jordan, you know what I mean? Like that stuff that everybody loves in Beckett slabs, I don't think would have their prices affected by this. But I do think a lot of people are going to side-eye this the same, like we talked earlier, and thinking that it's going to go the same path of SGC. So why should I invest a bunch of money in the Beckett slabs? They're going to be side-eyeing. People are already side-eyeing Beckett slabs in their Zion case. This is just another reason to do that and to potentially move them out of that holder and not pay a premium on it. And, if you're going to a show tomorrow or this weekend, you're not going to be wanting to pay top dollar for a Beckett slab. You're probably going to be using this as a negotiation tactic against any dealer that has a Beckett slab in their case. So Ryan, do you think that there's some validity to maybe like more common ultra modern stuff kind of takes a hit in the short to medium term?
Yeah, I think that's if they actually do want to invest there, I think it's unlikely that we'll see anything from like an operation standpoint in Q1, but like communication wise, if they need to give out like a roadmap of here's things we're doing or going to do to sort of invest in the Beckett brand, that has to come out in Q1 or exactly what you're suggesting will happen, which is people are going to assume it's fading. And that plays into the premium for sure. Like duration of the brand and the slab matter and how people price them. And so, yeah, if there's less confidence in the brand, the slabs are going to matter 5 years from now or sort of stand for the same thing, then people will pay a discount or price them at a discount to what they are today. And so, yeah, they either need to get ahead of it or, again, that might be PSA's sort of let the market speak, line there and say like, hey, if people start to think it's fading, then maybe we'll just let it fade. And okay, they'll just come our way. So I think they have to communicate the plan. They don't have to do the action might not come into play immediately, but the plan needs to be put in place or it will be discounted pretty quickly.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, thank you both for hopping on. I'll give Gio a thanks. He was on for about 45 seconds before his rich internet ran out. He must not have loaded enough minutes onto the prepaid card or something. But Swags, I'm sure you'll be talking more about this on your channel. And I think we already have our lead topic for the ungraded truth in about 10 or 12 days or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
And Ryan will be watching the gem rate numbers for the end. I assume you'll be coming up. This is your prime time, big end of year recaps and stuff like that. Oh, look
Yeah,
at him. He's
now it
so
doesn't
excited.
even matter.
I mean, it still
It's all
does. You still-
PSA. It's all collectors. They have everything. Yeah, now I'll have to go deeper on tag.
You're gonna have that. You're
Yeah.
probably gonna be having comic book data pretty soon. I have a sneaking suspicion, and yeah, it's gonna be a fun end of the. What could possibly be next? I'm sure things will go ahead and quiet down now. We're almost to Christmas. What other crazy news story could possibly happen in the next
Hopefully nothing.
2 weeks before the year ends?
My-
What a wild
my
close 2025.
You know what's great about you, Rob, is that your quotes just age. It's like they're like the lines from The Dark Knight Returns. Like as time goes on, they just get even more and more relevant and better and better. And in our intro for The Ungraded Truth, your line is, you just think that when is enough enough? Things just keep getting crazier, and then they always just get crazier. And it's just like, this is just the world of collectibles.
Swaggle House, do you really want to know? Do we really want to know?
I do, but I don't.
Yeah, we'll end on that. All right. Thanks, chat. Y'all been great.
Rob.
I have no video recorded for tomorrow. We're gonna let the live and this one cook. I'll see you all on Wednesday.
Swags, nice to meet you. Rob, thanks for having us.
Likewise.
Yep.